Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. I am your host, Jeff Waldorf. Welcome to a interesting, fun Friday edition of Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. We're going to have some fun. Great stories, as usual. Before I get into them, I do want to give you some news. A little bit of news here before I get into the news. Schedule is going to be a little weird. We're doing some moving, so we're going to be eventually be doing some moving here. So things are going to get a little weird, but that's all right. Kind of a big announcement, but that's okay. But that's just more personal stuff. Other than that, I want to give a shout out to the patrons. Patreon.com/TYTNation. I want to read off some of your names of people who support the show. Let me see. Let's get into there. Bring that up on screen here. On my screen. We have Justin Pomeroy, David Wilcoxon, Linda Taylor, First Storm and Last, Barry Muhammad, Nancy Kohler, Karen MacArthur. We have Robert Butler. We have Rohan Mapiri. More patrons here. Patrick McLean. Vikram Tevaraj. Rhonda Miller. Joseph. Sheila Hedel. Don Shorey. Brandon Sampson. Jevian Dargon. It's kind of a cool name. Carrie Venus. Steve Jones, Gary Worrell, Eric Luster, and Bruce Fisher. So I want to thank all those patrons, plus the rest, for keeping us independent and non-progressive, non-corporate progressive media. Sorry about that. It's been a rough couple of days. So mistakes are bound to happen, and they're bound to be hilarious. So, there we go. Anyway, thank you to all the patrons. Like I said, you can also help the show by using the Super Chat. YouTube Super Chat is kind of a cool function. What it does is that it elevates your comments, and it also helps the show by allowing you to make a donation as well. So those comments will, of course, be read on air. I also enjoy reading your hashtag TYT Nation tweets. So make sure if you're on Twitter, send me a tweet through that. Yeah, that's all. That's all for those announcements. Let's get into the news. Like I said, we got a lot of fun stories. We've got Donald Trump weighing in on single payer. Ted Cruz, his new statements on, what is it, Porngate? I don't know what to call it. Is there a gate? Is there a gate on this one? I don't know. I haven't seen that. But the Twitter controversy. Then we have Trump supporters responding to the possible deal with the Democrats on DACA. Then we have a hilarious memo. Not hilarious because of what's in it, but because of how we know about it. And then we have Ivanka Trump basically saying, you expected too much of me. And that's fun. All right. Let's get started. We'll talk about Medicare for All first. Obviously, that's huge news, so I want to dive right into that. Senator Bernie Sanders recently released his plan to essentially transform our healthcare system into one that actually takes care of the American people. Right now, what we have is a multi-payer system of for-profit health insurance. Bernie Sanders wants to change that into a single-payer, non-profit-based system. And of course, both sides, people on both sides, immediately freaked out, piled on from people allied with Hillary Clinton, who said, oh my God, you're giving out ponies. This is so unrealistic. And then they joined with people that were on the further right, because that criticism, of course, comes from the right. And they said, well, it's a socialized medicine, socialized takeover of healthcare. Yeah, where have we heard that argument before? Now, Trump also decided that he would weigh in on Bernie Care, and he tweeted this. He said, Bernie Sanders is pushing hard for a single-payer healthcare plan, a curse on the U.S. and its people. A curse. Interesting. He also said, I told Republicans to approve healthcare fast or this would happen. But don't worry, I will veto because I love our country and its people. Oh, yes, you absolutely love the country so much that you would be against making sure the entire country has healthcare. Now, look, this is your typical brain-dead Trump response. Look, as far as I can tell, he doesn't know what single-payer means. Or at least he doesn't understand what's actually in Bernie Sanders' bill. Now, I think, or at least he's been turned against it by the people that he's around. As I'm going to show you, he didn't used to think this way. Now, I think this is has to do a lot with the opinion of people like Gary Cohn and Steve Mnuchin and other powerful CEOs and Republicans that are around him that are like, oh, no, single payer bad, single payer bad. And of course, since he doesn't know anything, he repeats that, he regurgitates, single payer bad, curse. But look, what's so bad about guaranteeing health care for everybody? Not only is it the right thing to do, but it also drives down costs. That's not an accident. That's not me guessing. That's looking at the other countries who have single payer systems who spend half as much as we do on healthcare per person. We spend about $10,000 on healthcare per person. Canada spends about half that per person. And I know that somebody in the comments is going to probably make an argument like, oh, yeah, but doctor shortages. That's not true. Doctors are not fleeing Canada. In fact, it's kind of the other way around. A lot of doctors are going to Canada. Some Canadian doctors, by the way, are coming down to the United States for training because we do have excellent training programs, and then they go back to Canada to practice. And then, of course, there's arguments of government-run healthcare. No, it's not government-run healthcare. Basically, all it is that the government is your insurance company. The government, there's no government doctors. The government will pay the doctors for the services that they render to you. Again, he doesn't understand anything, and neither do a lot of the opponents from single payer. They don't understand what it actually means either. But anyway, now, for me, I don't see giving healthcare a curse, okay, to everybody. I actually think that it's a cure to our healthcare problems. And ironically, it does everything that Donald Trump promised it would do on the campaign trail. So he promised that it would lower premiums, that it would cover everybody. Well, that's what single payer does, okay? And be cheaper for the country. Already we spend $3.2 trillion on healthcare. And single payer would actually, like I said, lower that cost and cover everyone. And it's not me, it's there's evidence. And I know that there's a lot of attacks on the center, the centrists, the so-called Democrats. Like, no, you got to stick to the facts of Bernie Sanders. It's going to be more expensive, blah, blah, blah. No, look at the actual facts. And you can do that by looking at the countries that have actually already put these systems into place. There are facts there. We can look at those. We can see that it actually works. But anyway. Now, interestingly enough, this comes at a time where people started to have looked into Donald Trump's past and some of his past statements, and they're actually quite friendly towards single payer. In fact, even as early as May, President Trump said he believed Australia's single payer healthcare system was better than the U.S. health system, and he would be correct. That was one statement that I actually 100% agree with on Trump. He also, according to the Washington Post, he also said that back in 2000, he advocated for single payer as a potential Reform Party president candidate and had touted it in his book, The America We Deserve. He said, quote, "We must have universal health care. Just imagine the improved quality of life for our society as a whole." He also added the Canadian-style single-payer system, in which all payments for medical care are made to a single agency, as opposed to the large number of HMOs and insurance companies with their diverse rules, claim forms, and deductibles, helps Canadians live longer and healthier than Americans. So that's what he used to think in 2000. I guess he changed his mind. Or did he? Just before the 2016 primary, Donald Trump appeared on the David Letterman show and held up Scotland's socialized system as the ideal system. That's rather strange. So he is advocating for some sort of single-payer universal system. But wait, I thought single-payer was a curse. Now, Bernie Sanders, of course, did not take this line down, and he decided to defend his bill against Donald Trump by tweeting this. He said, "No, Mr. President, providing health care to every man, woman, and child is a right, is not a curse. It's exactly what we should be doing. What is a curse is your support for throwing 23 million people off health insurance. That's the curse, and we won't allow you to get away with it." Now, that's, of course, he's referring to the incredibly unpopular AHCA bill, Trump Care, which would have thrown 23 million people off health insurance. Now, it also would not have guaranteed coverage or lowered prices at all. Essentially, it was nothing more than a giant tax cut disguised as a healthcare bill. And you know what? That's what people noticed about it. That's why it had a 17% approval rating. Now, Medicare for all has a 60% approval rating. That's high even among Republicans. So why don't I give Trump just a little bit of advice? Hey, dude, why don't you read the polls on single payer? You would realize that it's very, very popular. Now, this is a bit of a stretch, but say he threatened a veto. Okay. Oh, if this ever gets to my desk, I'm going to veto it. First of all, if this ever got through Congress, which would be amazing in itself, because it would take so much political pressure that there would have to be a giant groundswell of support. This would have to be a little political revolution, okay, in order to put enough pressure on politicians to actually support single payer. That would be huge. Now, what would happen to the people who went against that? They would get crushed. Now, that's the last thing Donald Trump will want to do. Now, this is a guy, again, who thrives off affirmative, affirmation and positive press, okay? If this guy stands in the way of single payer, disaster. But if he signs single payer, well, that would be a defining moment in American history. Could you imagine? Everybody would have health care, and it would be partly thanks to Trump. He would have actually done something that both Hillary Clinton and President Obama couldn't do, which is, again, pass truly universal health care that actually people will love. Now, again, Trump doesn't care about policy. He doesn't care if it's good policy, bad policy. What he cares about is media, and what he cares about is whether or not people actually like him and say nice things about him. Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Now, of course, there's a lot of reasons that he would never do it. Again, he's too surrounded by establishment interests, and of course, mainly consumes establishment and right-wing media, which of course would be railing against single payer because they're wholly owned by giant multinational corporations. But nonetheless, even with that, it's kind of an interesting thought exercise. And if Trump was interested in actually thinking, he would at least look at the polls. He would at least examine the popular, it would see that it's a popular policy and go, maybe there's something to it. My poll numbers suck. People fucking hate me. Maybe I should do something extremely popular. It would be nice. But look, even if that never happens, and it's very likely to have never happened under Trump, single payer is coming. It does have record support, and I think that will only continue to grow. Like, people are tired of right-wing healthcare plans, which are really wealth care, and they're starting to get that, hey, maybe this single payer thing, maybe that is the answer. Maybe that is the best option. And it's because it not only works everywhere it's tried, but the people who put that system into effect, look, they're held up as heroes. And people and regular people who benefit from those systems absolutely love it and can't seem to understand why we're still stuck in this for-profit health model. Now, as for Trump, as I said, notice how the people that put this into effect are the national heroes for their respective countries. So that message is for Trump. Just look at that little bit of history and maybe you should think about it. Just saying. Okay. Let's move on. Now, in his first interview, after his Twitter account ended up liking a hardcore porn video, Ted Cruz has decided to at least change his views on masturbation. Now, he recently had an interview with CNN's Dana Bash. Now, he started out explaining that, hey, well, I wasn't operating that Twitter account. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was just a member of my staff. Well, let's take a look at that.
Oh, look, it was, we had a staffer who accidentally hit the wrong button, and it was a screw up. I will say Twitter went crazy with it. It became trending. As soon as we found out about it, we pulled it down. And it's generated a lot of amusement. It has prompted a lot of jokes. I understand that. I saw one person joking online that if only this had happened during the presidential, Cruz might be in the White House right now.
Have you identified the staffer? You know who it is?
We have looked into it. Yes, we have identified it. We pulled it down. It was an honest mistake. It was not. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't deliberate. It was a screw up.
Is the staffer being punished?
We have talked with the staffer. It's not going to happen again. It was a screw up.
Can you tell me the staffer's name?
I'm not going to out the fella. I mean, we have dealt with it internally, but I'm not going to throw someone under the bus.
Can you definitively say that it wasn't you?
It was not me, and it's not going to happen again. This was a screw up.
No, definitely wasn't me. It was just a screw up. It was a staffer. I'm not going to out the poor guy. I mean, I'm not going to throw him under the bus because it was actually me. I'm just saying it was an honest mistake. Honest mistake from somebody, unnamed intern. Okay, yeah, sure, dude. That's a fun little denial. But anyway, I want to go to the angle in which I criticized Ted Cruz on this before, when I previously reported on this. Now, and this would be his previous statements as Texas Solicitor General. So let me kind of refresh you on that. Now, at the time when he was Solicitor General, that's between 2003 and 2008, he defended a Texas ban on the sale of sex toys. And in doing so, made the claim that Americans have no right to masturbation. In his brief, not briefs, awful image, by the way, he argued that there is no substantive due process right to stimulate one's genitals for non-medical purposes unrelated to procreation or outside of an interpersonal relationship. Now, Dana Bash, she brought that up, and this was his response. More fun.
That's a good example, Dana, of where the media runs with things that are just totally false.
What's false about that?
So what is false about that? So I've read online, Cruz supports banning sex toys.
No.
That's complete
the sales.
nonsense.
I reread the brief this morning.
So
the sale of it.
All right. I spent 5.5 years as the Solicitor General of Texas. I worked for the Attorney General. The Attorney General's job is to defend the laws passed by the Texas legislature.
I get it, yep.
One of those laws was a law restricting the sale of sex toys. It was a stupid law. Listen, I am one of the most libertarian members of the Senate. I think it's idiotic, but it's an opportunity for knuckleheads in the media to claim, oh, isn't this ironic that Cruz wants to ban these things?
I can't believe I'm going to say...
People ought to be able to do what they want.
I can't believe I'm going to ask you this, but so you're officially saying Ted Cruz is okay with people buying sex toys?
I am saying that consenting adults should be able to do whatever they want in their bedrooms. And the media and the left seem obsessed with sex. Let people do what they want.
Okay. Look, hey, man, great answers. Thank you, Ted. Now we know that you're absolutely 100% okay with people spanking it. Wonderful. Now, but I love this, right? It's the media, the left and the media, they're so obsessed with sex. My God. Really? We're the ones that are obsessed with sex? No, that's very interesting because pretty sure the Republican Party is the party that denies people rights based on sex. Whether it be if you're transgender, right? Or people who are in same-sex relationships, it always comes down to sex. Now, let's not forget also that Ted Cruz personally is very, very pro-life, which isn't necessarily pro-life. It's actually anti-abortion. And he's more than happy to try and deny women their right to an abortion. We're not the ones that are obsessed with sex. You guys are. Look, all we're doing is that we point out the hypocrisy of some conservatives who want to inject big government into the bedroom. And as long as you guys keep doing that, well then, yes, we're going to make it an issue. Because as I said, it's an issue of hypocrisy. And if you're going to keep doing that, then, well, we're going to just have to keep challenging you on it. So, all right. And that's it on that. So let's go to our next segment here. Little White House drama. Now, President Trump is pretty famous for throwing temper tantrums if he doesn't get his way, which is exactly what happened back in May when Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused himself over the Russia probe. Now, he couldn't stand it, and he was absolutely pissed. Now, I want to show you how angry he got at Jeff Sessions over his recusal. I go to the New York Times. They write, shortly after learning in May that special counsel had been appointed to investigate links between his campaign associates and Russia, President Trump berated Attorney General Jeff Sessions in an Oval Office meeting, according to current and former administration officials. Now, why would he go after Jeff Sessions? Yeah, I know, Jeff Sessions recused himself because he himself did not disclose meetings that he had with Russians. He actually had to, this was, according to the law, he had to recuse himself because he had contact with the Russian ambassador without actually disclosing it. That would be a conflict of interest. So yes, he was forced to recuse himself. Now Trump, of course, very unhappy about that, and he actually considered it a betrayal. The president, according to the New York Times, had attributed the appointment of the special counsel Robert Mueller to Sessions' decision to recuse himself. A move Mr. Trump believes was the moment his administration effectively lost control over the inquiry. Accusing Mr. Sessions of disloyalty, Mr. Trump unleashed a string of insults on his attorney general. Now, this is according to interviews with 7 different people. Okay, this is not fake news. Okay, so they talk to the people inside the White House. They're like, don't say anything. Don't say who I am. But here's what I witnessed during this presidential dressing down. So now, according to them, they said the president's outburst came in the middle of an Oval Office meeting that Mr. Trump had on May 17th with top advisors. Now, they were discussing candidates that would take over the FBI after the president had fired James Comey. Now, in addition to Mr. Sessions, Vice President Mike Pence, Donald McGahn II, the White House counsel, and several other aides had attended the meeting. Now, in the middle of the meeting, I should say, McGahn received a phone call from Rod Rosenstein. Now, Rosenstein was the attorney general who had been overseeing the investigation. He was the one that actually appointed special counsel Robert Mueller. Now, in the telephone call to Mr. McGahn, Rosenstein said he had decided to appoint Mr. Mueller as special counsel. When the phone call ended, McGahn relayed the news to the president and his aides, and almost immediately, Trump began lobbing a volley of insults towards Mr. Sessions, saying that it was basically his fault that they were in the current situation. Trump also told Sessions that choosing him to be his attorney general was one of the worst decisions that he ever made, called him an idiot, and said, "You should resign." Now, look, I have no love for Jeff Sessions, so I'm not going to feel sorry for him. Because, look, if you throw in with Donald Trump, that's what you're going to get. He's a volatile man-child. But I guess we all kind of know that by now. And certainly people in the White House should have known that by now. But it is interesting to see him get thrown under the bus. Now, what was Sessions' reaction? Well, you're going to love this. An emotional Mr. Sessions told the president he would resign and left the Oval Office. That evening, as the Justice Department publicly announced the appointment of Mr. Mueller, the Attorney General wrote a brief resignation letter to the president that was later sent to the White House. A person familiar with the events raised the possibility that Mr. Sessions had become emotional because the impact of his recusal was becoming clear. Sessions also would later tell associates that the demeaning way the president addressed him was the most humiliating experience in decades of public life. You know, that actually sounds a lot like the way that John Kelly had described his most recent dressing down at the hands of the president. Now, unlike Kelly, of course, Sessions kind of just slinked away and went to go hide in his treehouse to draft his resignation letter. Kelly, of course, is like, I will never let Trump speak to me like that again. And then he literally started cleaning house inside the White House, getting rid of Anthony Scaramucci, getting rid of Steve Bannon, Sebastian Gorka. So he's like, no, I'm not going to take this. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start controlling the White House. We'll see how long that lasts. But Sessions, of course, was like, ooh, I got to go write my resignation letter. Speaking of the letter, in the hours after the Oval Office meeting, Mr. Trump's top advisors, actually intervened to stop him from releasing that letter and to stop him from resigning. Now, Mr. Pence, Stephen Bannon, and Reince Priebus all advised that accepting Mr. Sessions' resignation would only sow more chaos inside the administration and rally Republicans in Congress against the president. Now, the president, of course, said, okay, never mind. I'm not going to take your resignation letter. He actually returned it to Mr. Sessions with a handwritten response. So he's like, okay, never mind. My aides talked me out of it. You're lucky. You're lucky Stephen Bannon likes you so much. Yeah, but that didn't stop Donald Trump from actually attacking Sessions openly to try to get him to quit. Now, interestingly enough here, right? And notice who talked them out, or talked the president out of firing Jeff Sessions. That would be Stephen Bannon and Reince Priebus. And Mike Pence. The only one that's left is Mike Pence. And with that loss of support, watch out. The next thing Sessions does that wrongs the president, oh, it's not going to get good. It's not going to be good at all. Now, in fact, according to the Times, the aggressiveness with which Mr. Trump had fought Sessions' removal was a blow to him. Had sought Sessions' removal. Now, some of the president's aides, not sure if Mr. Trump really wanted the attorney general gone or was working through his anger, as I said, were able to delay the firing until the president's anger passed. However, Trump continued his public attacks in the days that followed, including taking to Twitter to call him weak, a word that is among the harshest criticisms in Mr. Trump's arsenal. And if you think this has gotten better over time, it has not. Administration officials and some of Mr. Trump's outside advisors have puzzled at Mr. Sessions' decision to stay on. But people close to Mr. Sessions said that he did not leave because he had a chance to have an impact on what he sees as a defining issue of his career, curtailing both legal and illegal immigration. So Sessions says, look, man, I did not like the way that Trump talked to me. It was humiliating, and I'd quit. I want to quit, but maybe if I stay, I'm going to be able to be racist and keep all the immigrants out, the dirty immigrants, okay? Well, that's interesting. Because, look, recently Jeff Sessions was able to make the announcement that Trump was undoing DACA, right? And actually, he told people that he had successfully pushed the president towards ending that policy. However, recently, Mr. Trump undercut Sessions in a tweet saying that he would reconsider whether or not to end that program, leading the Attorney General to tell allies that he was frustrated that the president had muddled months of work leading to the announcement of that new policy. And on Wednesday evening, Democrats have announced that they had reached a little bit of a tentative deal with the president to extend protections for young undocumented immigrants under the DACA program. And on Thursday morning, taking a vastly different position from the one Mr. Sessions had announced, the president tweeted about the need for protections for people brought here through no fault of their own. So here comes Trump making a little bit of a deal with the Democrats to provide protections for Dreamers, directly spitting in Sessions' eye. And I absolutely love it. Not just because extending protections is part of the right thing to do, but also because it's got so many people who are like Jeff Sessions, who are super anti-immigrant, crying. Even Ann Coulter is pissed. Now, this, of course, shows that I think that Trump is fed up with losing on issues because of very unpopular Republican policies. And that he's willing to take a win wherever he can get one, even if it means shitting on Republicans. It also means that, of course, the more establishment voices that are in favor of DACA are actually starting to win out. Now that he's got people like Steve Bannon out, Stephen Miller is, of course, still there, but his voice is vastly diminished. Sebastian Gorka, like I said, gone. So who's left? Wall Street guys. Wall Street guys and establishment figures, and also members of Trump's family who have no ideology. So that's why they're more than willing to, of course, shit on the Republicans and go against Republican ideology, because they have no ideology of their own. So, very interesting. But that's what happened between Trump and Sessions. So now let's go to diehard Trump supporters and how they feel about the DACA deal. All right. Now, President Trump recently made some headlines after agreeing to do a little bit of a deal with the Democrats in order to protect Dreamers. Now, Dreamers, of course, are people who were brought here through no fault of their own as children. And thanks to DACA, put in by President Obama, we're actually allowed to live, work, study, pay taxes, and even serve in the military without fear of being deported. Now, as I said, that was an Obama-era program. Donald Trump happens to go after pretty much every policy that Obama had put into place. Now, this would, of course, impact about 800,000 people that had come here, that had been brought here illegally, again, through no fault of their own. Now, interestingly enough, since this was an Obama-era policy, he got rid of it, but then decided, hey, man, I had been previously in support of things like DACA, so I'm going to do my own version, and I'm going to get all the credit for it, which I think is something that is definitely Trump. Now, what's also interesting is the fact that this is actually really popular across the aisle. It earns majority support among Democrats, Republicans, and basically the American people. Now, however, there is one group of people that are not happy about this, and that's conservatives. And they, of course, wasted no time in going after the president. Now, a lot of these happen to be prominent Trump supporters and white nationalists. And that's people like Sam Nunberg. Now, Nunberg was one of his former campaign advisors. He said in an interview Thursday morning, the reality is sinking in that the Trump administration is on the precipice of turning into an establishment presidency. Representative Steve King also weighed in. And he said Trump base is blown up, destroyed, irreparable, and disillusioned beyond repair. No promise is credible. That's, of course, if they actually come to a deal on DACA. And look, Steve, Sam, you should already know this. Trump is an unbelievable liar. Yeah, of course he's going to flip-flop on positions. Of course he's going to lie about previous positions and change his positions. That's what he does. He is unpredictable. Now, more conservative outrage. Next, we have Laura Ingraham. She tweets exactly what Donald Trump campaigned on. Not she added, build the wall, build a wall. Or maybe not really. Sounds kind of like lock her up, even though, we don't really care anymore, right? And that's what he said at his one of his rallies. Or what about drain the swamp? They didn't actually mean it. Actually, he thought it was hokey. He didn't like it at all. But he kept saying it because it played well. Now, this isn't me making this up. I'm not falsely attributing quotes. There are videos out there that show him saying that. These videos exist. I'm not making it up. It's not fake news, okay? You can find it for yourself. But anyway, now that he's flipped on some of those things, well, look, for one, I think that means that he's not an ideologue, right? And number two, it just means he has no loyalty to anyone but himself. Now, that's good and bad, right? Now, one reason, okay, if it's advantageous to him, then he'll support it, even if it means dealing with the Democrats. Again, we've seen that. Now, the bad thing about that is that he's got no core beliefs or principles, which make it very hard for him to pin down. Now, he's also very reliant on the information that he receives, as well as the media perception, right? So that means he's very able to be manipulated, which could be very, very bad, especially considering we have a more establishment group of people around him. Now, I have more conservative reaction. This is fun. This is from Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter said, this guy's like a couch. He picks up whatever the person is sitting on him is wearing. Now, this during an appearance with WBAL's Derek Hunter, conservative talk show. She also continues, whatever his audience wants him to say, he says, which is why some of us have been concerned. She also later tweeted out, at this point, who doesn't want Trump impeached? Also saying, if we're not getting a wall, I prefer President Pence. In another tweet, she said, let's play Jeopardy, answer an Easter egg. Question, what's the only thing easier to roll than Donald J. Trump? So that's pretty harsh, man. Now, there's even more from Coulter. She talked to the Daily Beast, and she told him, quote, you put your money down on a horse. Sometimes he doesn't win, place, or show. So she's very disillusioned with Mr. Trump right now, thanks to the two deals with the Democrats, including the possible DACA deal. So now, there's Ann Coulter. Let's go to Breitbart. Now, Breitbart ran a story with the headline in bright red, Amnesty Done. Now, furthermore, there was a Breitbart editor who talked to the Washington Post in a phone call, and he said, quote, this is a betrayal of the highest order. Donald Trump should be ashamed of himself. He wasn't elected to do this. And of course, the editor was mostly backed by the site's readers, who said, quote, put a fork in Trump. He is done. Primary time. What a huge letdown. And I can reconcile Trump caving on virtually every issue. Amnesty and not building the wall are not one of them. There's more. There's another angry conservative being mentioned here is ex-Congressman Joe Walsh. Now, he went on MSNBC and he had this to say.
This is a betrayal. Look, this issue is different. Republican voters will not line up lock, step, and barrel behind President Trump. This issue got Trump elected, period. No amnesty, build the damn wall. And if he betrays that promise, Craig, this was the essence of his campaign. If he betrays that promise, he's dead. He is dead among his base. Millions and millions of voters will abandon him. They'll abandon him, Craig.
Joe, is that not hyperbole? I mean, he also promised repeal and replace on day one.
No. But respectfully, didn't know what repeal, replace of Obamacare meant. He ran on this issue. This issue, not Obamacare. I got elected to Congress because of Obamacare. He got elected because of the wall and amnesty. Bar none. If he goes back on this, I think he's through. Millions and millions will walk from him.
Oh, man. So, Congressman Joe Walsh, not exactly happy. Now, we go from MSNBC now to Fox News. Now, according to Fox News, On Twitter, Fox host Lou Dobbs tweeted out, quote, deep state wins, huge loss for MAGA. Sean Hannity, now Sean Hannity was an interesting case. He didn't actually come out against the president, but instead decided to blame the whole deal on Mitch McConnell. He said, well, Mitch, great job. You failed us so miserably with healthcare and excessive expectations. Now POTUS has to deal with Dem leaders. Oh my God, he's got to deal with the Democrats on an actually very popular policy. And now Hannity later added, I blame ours, they caused this. They wanted him to fail and now pushed him in the arms of political suicide, if true. Wait a minute. Again, how's doing a deal that a majority of Americans actually agree with, Republicans included, how is that political suicide? It's an interesting question. Then again, logic, never Hannity's strong suit. Look, these policies might actually be, these deals and policies might actually be helping Trump. Now, look, I don't have any polls to back that up, and I'll be completely honest on that. However, there are other polls that suggest that Republicans are, unlike what Joe Walsh says, oh, the Republicans, they'll walk away by the millions for Trump if they do bipartisan deals with the Democrats on DACA. Well, it turns out that, no, you're actually wrong. There's a recent Rasmussen poll that found 66% of likely U.S. voters said that it was good for the country if Trump works with congressional Democrats to advance his agenda. Republicans, 72%, are even more enthusiastic about the president working with Democrats than actual Democrats, which is at 62%, and voters now affiliated with either major party. So, look, again, DACA, very popular, even among Republicans. I even saw a couple of tweets talking about DACA from Trump supporters that said, hey, man, if you work hard, you pay your taxes, I don't care. Like, yes, you can be here. Like, we're fine with those guys, but we just don't like the stereotypical brown person, that sponges off the welfare. We hate those brown people. Okay. Well, at least you're clear on that. But anyway, like I said, not so much political suicide. And look, we know Trump. We know that he responds to positive news coverage. And as long as he's getting this positive news coverage, and as well as policies that he can claim are wins that he can put his name on, well, then he's going to keep going in this direction. Much to the chagrin of Ann Coulter, Steve Bannon, and his white nationalist friends. Of course, we'll see how long this new spirit of bipartisanship lasts. Because look, hey, with Trump, you never know what direction he's going to go in. All right, let me take a break here. And we'll come back. We got two more stories real quick, and then we'll end out the show. So stay right here, Around the Nation. backing around the nation here. We got a couple more stories for you guys today. Let's go with a fun little story on leaks. Leaks aren't necessarily always fun, but in this case, a little bit. And then we'll end out the show with Ivanka Trump. So, all right. Switch over to that. And, all right. That's a bit of a fun story about leaks. Normally, stories about leaks aren't quite fun, but you'll find the fun is not actually what the leak is about, but the fact that it's a leak. Now, recently BuzzFeed obtained a memo from National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster. Now, in it, he decided to warn agency employees against leaking both classified and unclassified information. Now, the memo included the date of September 8th. The report said, and asked all government agencies to hold a 1-hour organization-wide event to review how to guard both classified information and unclassified information against leaks. So, what happened? So, H.R. McMaster creates this memo saying, we're going to have a thing about how to guard information against leaks, and what happens, it promptly gets leaked. That's fun. And now, the memo actually reads, for those with access to classified information, a review of the non-disclosure agreement reminds us of the responsibilities that come with access to and penalties for unauthorized disclosure of classified information. However, it is equally important to discuss the importance of protecting controlled unclassified and personally identifiable information from unauthorized public disclosure. Again, kind of a standard memo that's against leaks. And again, immediately leaked. One of the staffers was like, hey, it's a memo about fighting the leaks. I know, let's leak it to the press. Awesome. Now, this memo is actually outlines some of the new measures that they're taking against White House leaking. Now, leaks, of course, have plagued this administration since day one, and that's something that's been actually very upsetting to the president. In fact, this memo shows an expansion of President Obama's war on leaks, and this is BuzzFeed. This is from BuzzFeed writer Chris Geidner. He writes, McMaster's memo is directed to a much larger group, including virtually every senior official in the federal government, from the vice president and cabinet heads to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to the director of the Peace Corps. Perhaps more importantly, the memo asserts that unauthorized disclosure of both classified and controlled unclassified information causes harm to our nation and shakes the confidence of the American people. They also said, in this era of unprecedented unauthorized disclosures, it is important to take time to review with your workforce their roles and responsibilities in safeguarding United States government information. Well, and that, fairly obvious. It's fairly obvious that they have a lot of work to do. Again, fun. Okay. Not much there. Same with this story. Let's go to Ivanka Trump. Now, Ivanka Trump recently spoke to the Financial Times and was asked a few pointed questions about her influence on her father's administration so far. Now, she gave some very, very interesting answers, and Axios decided to break them down. Now, they talked about her influence to change some of her father's policies. Now, her response to an answer to a question about that, she answered, some people have created unrealistic expectations of what they expect from me. That my presence in and of itself would carry so much weight with my father that he would abandon his core values. It's not going to happen. But wait, hold on a minute there. I think it's obvious that your father has no core values. Except, of course, for the pimping of the Trump brand, which is kind of like what you're doing. Now, not only that, but if you have no influence on your father, then please tell me what the fuck you're doing there. I can't figure it out. I mean, you say you're supposed to be a voice for working women. You're not a voice for working women. You say you're a voice for feminism, not a voice for feminism, as I'm going to point out. What are you there for? What's your purpose? You're not qualified to do anything in the White House. No, the reason that she's there is because of nepotism, plain and simple. You're also there because of your business deals that help the Trump empire. Again, you're not there advancing the causes of working women. In fact, she recently helped end Obama's equal pay rule. That would actually have given transparency. So women could tell how much they're getting paid compared to men. And so they could take it up with their boss and be like, hey man, we've got these transparency rules now. I can see that I'm getting vastly underpaid for doing the same job. I would like to negotiate for better wages. That would help close the wage gap. Okay. Not only that, but look, she also never spoke out against climate change, despite the fact that she had met with Al Gore at least once to discuss the issue of climate change. Apparently she's supposed to believe in it, but she didn't speak out about all these regulations and rules from the Obama administration being ended by the Trump administration. Well, what about when he went after the LGBT community, when he banned transgender people from the military? Did you come out and against that? What did you do? What did you do? Oh, you were notoriously silent. Look, she also never spoke out in favor of Planned Parenthood. In fact, she was like, well, you could prevent this if you just stopped, granting abortions to people. It's 3% of what they do. And it shouldn't even matter how much of a percent what it does. Because abortion is a right of a woman. It's a right of privacy. But anyway, all that. But don't worry, she has an excuse for not saying or doing anything. She said, quote, to voice dissent publicly would mean I'm not part of the team. When you're part of a team, you're part of a team. Oh, okay. So since I'm part of Team Trump, I have to support whatever the team does 100%, even if it contradicts my values. Really? So you can't speak out at all? Because if you say something, you're off the team? Is that how it works? Is Trump going to kick you out of the family if you disagree with him? I don't know. Knowing Trump, maybe he would. No, dude. If your team is doing shitty things that are against your beliefs, you should damn well be able to criticize it. But that, of course, would actually involve having core beliefs and having the guts to stand up for those beliefs. And from here, it just doesn't seem like she has any. Like father, like daughter, I guess. Okay. That's it. I know we're ending a little bit early today. It's been, like I said, it's been an interesting week. Next week will also be an interesting week. We'll not be here Tuesday. And I don't know going from there because of the move that we're doing. So I will keep you updated on all that stuff. But we should soon be able to return back to a normal schedule. At least next month, at the latest. So, anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in right here around the nation, TYT Nation. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. We'll be back on Monday, so make sure to tune in. Have an awesome weekend. Thank you very much for supporting us, for watching the show. Make sure to give us a like and a share on YouTube here. That's it. Love you guys. Thank you. And have an awesome weekend. We'll see you Monday. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.